Welcome to the Final Frontiers radio show, where we spotlight inspiring missionary endeavors around the globe. Stay tuned to hear how you can personally get involved, helping the Lord's frontline soldiers effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. In this episode, we'll be talking specifically about some of the miracles experienced during our recent trip to Honduras, where the new Ernest Livingston Visionary Trip Special was filmed.
Hey guys, you're listening to the Final Frontiers radio show. I'm Daniel Nelms, and I'm here today with Josh Martin.
Hello, we are back from Honduras, and we wanted to tell you some miracles that took place on that trip, just some neat things from the experiences that we had. We had intended to do this episode actually live while we were in Honduras, but
back in June.
Yeah, so last month. But we're trying to play catch up now because it was an exhausting experience.
There was no downtime to be able to even do this between the workload and the stuff that was going on and the sickness.
Yeah.
We just were not able to do it until right now in the middle of July, believe it or not.
Yeah, we had intended to do scripting and storyboarding. I thought, I'm going to be feeling great, and every night I'm going to be able to work extra time. And there was no way. We were just completely exhausted. We worked hard every single day, and sometimes when some of the people would start resting and everything, I would grab the cameras and grab the gear and just head out again and try to do anything close by that I possibly could. And so we had sicknesses hitting us. One member of his family would get sick, and then he would get sick, and then somebody else would get sick in his family. I would get sick. It was just back and forth, and we just kept pushing. But we wanted to tell you just some neat things that happened during that experience. I mean, we saw 3 different groups come through that were coming for visionary trips to check out Honduras, check out the national preachers, check out the Touch of Life centers, just see all the things that are going on there. We got to spend time with 3 different pastors and 3 different groups. But in the very beginning, it was amazing. God protected us. And the first thing that took place was just coming into the country. There's just a lot of upheaval there. There's been a lot of near Civil War type circumstances. And we won't tell you all of the deathly experiences we went through, but we will say that even in the very beginning, if we had come in just a little bit sooner,
20 minutes sooner.
Yeah, we would have been in an experience where 4,000 people were marching on the capital city, Tegucigalpa, right there at the airport. 4,000 people. And we didn't know that. God knew that. We didn't know that there was going to be tear gas canisters and that people were going to be herded out into the runway just to be protected. Daniel had his family and me there, and we're all together flying in, and suddenly...
Not to mention, 10, 11 bags full of camera equipment, expensive equipment.
All of our equipment that we were trying to protect, and we're coming into the situation at the airport and not knowing it. And suddenly the plane gets rerouted right before we hit the coast, and we went to a coastal city, San Pedro Sula. And so we land there, and we're stuck on the airstrip for a little while because they're telling us about what's happening, and they're trying to decide what to do and trying to get in contact with the airline and all this. And some of the people got off in that area, and some got back on. There was a lot of discrepancy there. We're stuck on the runway, and then they said that people were starting to descend on the runway there as well. And so we got turned around and had a big surprise, went straight back to Atlanta. And so we went all the way to Honduras, came all the way back to Atlanta, and we're stuck there for the night.
Yeah, and the immigration and customs agents were all like, wait a second.
They didn't even know what to do with this.
You left the country, but you didn't leave because you never checked in anywhere else. So we were kind of caught in this gray area of immigration.
And we never got off the airplane.
No, we were always there.
Yeah.
So, and they turned us around back to Atlanta, but fortunately Delta created another flight early the next morning, and there was 42 of us on the plane.
Yeah.
And
whole another flight.
It was amazing. But the interesting thing is when we got to Tegucigalpa the next day, all but 2 of our bags made it. And most of the other people had missing luggage. So they suggested that we wait around and see if maybe our bags would come on the next flight. Well, guess what? Nobody's bags came through on the next flight except ours. Our 2 missing bags.
Big miracle.
That was a miracle. I said, praise God, thank you, Father, for this. I really need this because I had been around, for 2 days now traveling, and one of the bags had my clothes in it.
Yeah, when you're traveling like that, you've got no chance to change clothes. You can like shower and put your dirty clothes back on.
Yeah.
But everybody was in that scenario. So several miracles happened just getting
right
us
there.
into the country.
Yeah.
And then we go into this period of exhaustion and working very hard. But Daniel, you were going to tell us about the trip to Chula TECA.
So we decided to head down south. I was taking my wife and daughters down to see their family. And we were also going to be doing some filming out there. Well, on the way there, we kind of hit a few snags. You see, as Josh was saying, the country is sort of in a state of upheaval at the moment. And we kept hitting roadblock after roadblock. We would reroute based on maps and GPS and suggestions from friends. And before we could get to the next road to get into the city, that road would be blocked too. Finally, at one point, I took a wrong turn and we got slowed down a little bit, figured out where I was, and then went to turn back into the city and into a different sort of back road into Chula TECA. And right before we got there, there's fire, there's an explosion. They had blocked off that road and they had blown up a car. It was a pickup truck for the electric company, a government vehicle. I mean, had we gotten there maybe a minute, 2 minutes early, had I not taken that wrong turn, we would have been right there in the middle of that right when it was happening and maybe got our car blown up along with, the fact that I'm there, Josh is there, my family's there, all of our equipment is in this truck. It would have been bad. So there is yet another miracle that happened.
God was really, really protecting us there.
It was.
And by this time, Daniel and I were both ill. We had a lung infection going on.
Yeah.
We were coughing, just trying to stay alert. And I can remember, trying to even sleep that night because I was just coughing. I'm sleeping on the couch in the living room there in the house. And the next day we get up and we said, okay, we got to film. And we're going to this area where these waterfalls were right on the border of Nicaragua.
Dinosaur bones.
Yeah, there's fossils and all kinds of things there. But I
amazing.
actually swam across so that I could say I was in Nicaragua. I swam across the rapids and climbed up over the boulders.
Illegal alien.
Yeah, for a brief moment, but I wasn't caught. We were filming in that area, and I didn't even have the energy to do any of that in the beginning. Once we got there, it got extremely sunny, extremely hot, and I can remember being so dizzy in the beginning.
We were also at high elevation, too. I mean, I remember when we finally finished filming, just trying to walk back to the truck, just stopping on the way, just kind of just gasping for air, thinking, I'm going to die out here.
I can remember having absolutely no energy. Yeah, well, when the gunshots happened,
we decided to leave. We were out there minding our own business, filming, and then all of a sudden there's gunfire all around. We say, it's time to go.
But that was the time that we were trying to hurry through all these scenes up on these cliffs, and there's nothing there to grab, no trees, no crevices or anything. You're right above the water.
No safety rail.
And so I've got tripods, and I've got the audio equipment and microphones and everything, and we were just so exhausted. I'm up there, and I can remember setting down some of the equipment, and there's these hollowed out areas up there where water had caught just from rainwater. Yeah, pooled all over the top of that area, just chiseled out. And I remember hearing, in my dizzy state while I'm working, I can hear this sliding sound, and I look over, and the microphone equipment, the actual recording device that has the cards in it.
In the bag.
Yeah, inside the bag. Not the mic itself, but it's attached to the mic right there, slides down into one of these pools, and I run over, not knowing how deep it is and how far it goes and everything, and you reach in, grab it, and I pulled it out, drained the water out, and then shut it off. When we tried to turn it on, it did not function, didn't work, and we had no audio. We had gotten a little bit recorded down below, but now for the top of the cliff shots, we weren't able to get those with correct audio, and that was just kind of that was a blow. And then we see the military in the distance coming in, and then we see the gunshots and everything. We're doing our absolute best. I mean, I'm even throwing myself off a cliff to jump in the water at one point, but we have no audio there. So our hearts are just kind of sick. The very next day, we're having to take off and leave, and we're just praying all that night, all the next day, with sick hearts, like, God, please help us fix this audio device, somehow fix this. And we went into the capital city the next day, getting some batteries to test this thing and drying it out. Daniel, you had it completely taken apart and set on the desk. We had it in fans set on it all night and everything, and we're just praying. And I can remember sitting in the room back there. It was just me and him at that time, and we're back, and we've got like 1 week to really push through everything. Yeah. And we're just praying, God, please, this is in your hands. And seeing that light come on.
Yeah. It was amazing.
We were thanking God so much for that.
When we hooked up the microphone, we saw, the little meter going up and down, indicating that there was audio. Yeah. We pulled the card out, and we checked the device, and yes, it had recorded. It was a real blessing because, quite frankly, not only is that equipment expensive and would have been, very costly for us to be able to replace, especially with, our budget being somewhat low to finish out Ernest Season 2, we most certainly could not have gotten a replacement down there. That just wasn't going to happen. Yeah. So it would have pretty much sunk the rest of the filming in Honduras. It would have been really bad. That would have been very bad.
And we saw water droplets inside. Even when you pulled the cards out, we could see water droplets.
There was water in the cable, the audio cable. It had gotten all inside. It destroyed the little lithium battery that came with.
Mm-hmm. You got hot pack. And you had to throw it.
I had to throw it. It started to heat up, and I could see steam jetting out the side. So I just tossed it out. I was like, I'm not going to hold on to this thing.
But we started seeing some miracles that last week. There were a couple of things where God protected us.
It was. There was an incident when we went up into the mountain. We had gone up to Bartolo several times, attempting to get some scenes that we really needed, and it just wasn't working out. Every time we had been up there, it was with groups. So we decided to go up there by ourselves to see if we could get this done. And we had everything done. We loaded up the back of the truck, we closed it up, and we start heading down the mountain. Not quite halfway down, maybe a quarter of the way down. Mm-hmm. There's a horse in the middle of the road, which is not that abnormal. There's just horses and mules and cows and everything else in the road all the time. What was abnormal is this horse would not move. I began honking at it, wouldn't move. Revving the engine, getting up real close behind it, it just would not get out of the way. It was as if something was holding it there. So Josh hops out of the truck. He was in the passenger side.
And he wasn't stubborn at all. It was like, he just moved as soon as I grabbed him.
As soon as he grabbed him, as soon as he grabbed him, he moved. But it was like something was keeping him there, wouldn't let him get out of the way otherwise. Mm-hmm. And then, Josh leads him to the side of the road, and he's about to get in the truck, and he stops, and I see this weird look on Josh's face, and he's looking towards the back of the truck. I'm thinking, what's the problem? Mm-hmm. And he tells me, the back of the truck is down. Yeah. That had never happened, by the way. We drove this truck across the country several times.
Over water streams
over
the kids
rivers
in the back
and everything else. We took that truck through a lot of crazy stuff. That never happened until that time. So he looks, and the tripod is gone. It's not a cheap tripod. This tripod.
It's a big one too.
It's a big one, and it's the one that we needed to finish out the filming with. So Josh takes off running up the mountain, and I just slowly managed to turn the truck around on this little one-way mountain road. I start heading up, and then here comes Josh with the tripod in his hand. Now, would you say there was two little girls from our feeding center who had seen that tripod fall off the back of the truck. So it was too heavy for one of them, so they picked it up together, and both of them together are carrying that down the mountain, trying desperately to catch up with us. But Josh intercepted them, and we got our tripod back. I firmly believe that was a miracle, that God kept that horse there in the road just so that we would know that we lost a tripod. Because if it hadn't been for that horse, we would have gotten all the way back down the mountain, back to Cantaranas. It would have been like 45 minutes later, and that tripod would have been, the likelihood of us being able to find it at that point would be very slim. So that was yet one more miracle.
Yeah, who knows who would have seen those girls with it and taken it from them and sold it to somebody.
Absolutely.
While we were up there, though, it was pretty neat. Usually when the trucks come up, they let the school out and the kids come running over to eat. And I was told the time that happens. And so we were there, we were ready, and we had 2 cameras set up and everything to film these kids running. And
an hour later.
Yeah, I thought it was like 45 minutes.
It was 45 minutes
like
to an hour late.
Well, I was going down and trying to make sure that they could see me. I was kind of pacing back and forth, trying to show them where I was at. I'd get close, and finally, I just kind of stepped over the line a little bit and looked over to the side, and I saw a familiar plant. When I'm in Peru, I see pineapple fields, and there's a big joke in Ernest Season 2 here when you see the special, where Ernest is looking for a pineapple tree for his sister. He's supposed to take a picture, and she doesn't know, and none of the people in his family know that pineapples do not grow on trees. They grow on the ground in like plants. And so I'm looking over there, and I know that, of course. Ernest doesn't know that, but I do. And I'm looking over there, and I see one. I'm like, no. That's a pineapple. That has to be a pineapple. And it's just a few of them in a field. And I cannot tell you how excited I was because we had been crushing our hopes for weeks.
No pineapple fields anywhere.
Yeah, you'd see people with pineapples and they say, well, yeah, they're all grown up in the north and we're shipping them down, truckloads of them, but there was no way we could go that far to find one. No way we could do it. I thought maybe when we get to Peru, maybe if I was in the central jungle, I could see pineapples. I never saw pineapples while I was there, though, but... So there it is. There's a field, and I needed that scene in order for us to finish well and show the very end of the movie that was scripted. We needed a pineapple field. And so because of that delay, I happened to be down there pacing back and forth, and I look over and I see that field. And of course we went up, we asked the family, they let us go right in and film, and we were done and got the whole end of the movie done right there unexpectedly. So that was a blessing. But so many things during this trip, we're not actually telling you the difficulties, we're telling you the miracles.
Yeah.
Because I could sit here and talk for several hours about how hard. It's amazing how the enemy fights little things, and yet we knew God wanted this all to happen. We knew He was with us in this. I think that somebody is going to see this film. I think some young people and some kids are going to see this film and say, I want to take a visionary trip.
I think so.
And I think adults and grandparents are going to say, I want to send my kids, or I want to send my grandkids, and churches and youth pastors or a pastor out there is going to say, I want to go take a missions trip. And whether you come to this one or whether you come to another one that Final Frontiers has, visionary trips around the world, you don't know what person might be inspired into missions or be inspired to give big to make something huge happen in the world just because of this video project that we did to try to inspire people. God protected our equipment, God helped us out, and He wanted it to get done, I believe that.
He did. And he did. It finally got done. It was not easy, but it did get done.
Not easy at all.
So, we get that. We get the shots that we need. And there's just a couple of little things that we needed to finish off. But it's time to go to Peru. We don't have any more time. Well, the night before we're going to go to Peru, things got a little crazy around the country. Now, keep in mind, the place that we're at, the place that we bring our groups, everything's fine there. Everything's calm there.
We never had any problems
had any problems there. But in the capital cities, in the urban areas, that's where the protests happen, and that's where the bad stuff happens. So our group's not in any danger. Just know that going in. But there was some pretty major stuff that happened the night before. I was kind of glued to the news, reading Twitter and everything on my phone, trying to get a picture of what's going on. And things were just getting really, really bad. And here I am about to leave the country to go to Peru with Josh, and my family's on the other side of the country. And I'm worried about them. And I prayed the night before. I said, God, I believe that you want me to go to Peru. I believe that you gave this project to me, and I've seen it through, and I believe that I need to go down there so I can see this with my own eyes. But if there's a reason you don't want me to go, if there's a reason I need to be here for my family, don't let me go. And I left it at that. I went to bed. And the next morning I woke up, and I didn't really have peace, but I wasn't worried like I had been the night before. God had taken that from me. And Josh, he was saying the same thing. He wasn't worried either.
And I didn't expect to even go to Peru by the next day. In fact, I thought we were going to get up in the middle of the night and just leave.
Yeah, that was a possibility.
But by the next morning, I didn't have any problem about going or any concern. It was weird.
It was very strange
piece.
And we were expecting there to be protests and we were expecting to get stopped on the way to the airport because they were supposedly going to shut the city down. And so I thought, well, if we don't get there, we don't get there. Well, we got through. There was no protest. It was an easy ride to the airport.
Yeah.
And we go wait in line at it was Copa Airlines. and it was an enormous line. I think they had 3 people waiting in the first class, executive line where they hardly had anybody waiting at all.
And one worker left on a break.
One worker to do this huge line. We were in line for, I think it was just a little over 2 hours. And our plane was about 30 minutes from takeoff. We thought, we're going to miss this flight.
Yeah.
But we got to the counter. The guy came back from his break. The line started moving again. And we got our ticket. So I thought, well, okay, here we go. God, it's in your hands. You want me to go? I'm ready to go. We got up to immigration. They look at my passport. They stamp it. You have to go through several phases of immigration in Honduras. It's not like it is here where they look at your passport and you're done. You have to go through 3 or 4 different phases. So phase 1, we're cool. I go up to phase 2. They grab my passport. They look at my ticket. They say, you're going to Peru. Yes. Okay, so they have these little machines that you have to scan your hands. It's not like a fingerprint scanner. It's like a whole hand scanner. Put my hand in the scanner. It beeps. The light's green. And then the lady kind of cocks her head, looking at her computer monitor, and she looks up at me and she says, you have a residency here in Honduras. I said, yes. I am a legal Honduran resident. I said, but it's expired. I haven't renewed it yet. But she said, that doesn't matter. You're a resident. I said, oh, okay. She said, where's your yellow fever vaccination certificate? I said, my what now? She says, you have to have one of those to go to Peru. I said, no, I didn't know anything about that. And he said, the airline didn't tell you? I said, no, ma'am. She said, but you don't have one of those. I said, honestly, I think I did get a couple of years ago to go to Africa, but I don't have it with me. If I have it, it would be in my desk drawer. So she calls her supervisor over, and the supervisor starts looking at my information on the computer and my ticket, and she says, look, I can't let you go to Peru. The problem is, if you go to Peru, you can't come back to Honduras. She says, they probably won't let you into Panama because we have a connecting flight in Panama.
That was a tight one, too.
And they said, but if you somehow miraculously get through Panama, we will not let you come back here. In fact, we will send you back to Lima. And you will have to find your own way back to the United States. And I said, well, when could I come back? She says, well, you have to go and get a yellow fever vaccination and wait 2 years before we'll let you back in the country. And I said, well, I can't do that. She said, exactly, and that's why I'm not letting you go on this plane. And I stopped and I said, well, listen, I said, last night, you guys know what's going on here with the government and the protests. I said, I prayed to God. I said, Father, if you don't want me to go on this flight, if you don't want me to go to Peru, if I need to be here for my family, don't let me get on the plane. And that's exactly what he did. And so I told the ladies, honestly, I'm not surprised. So they said, well, that's pretty interesting. Have a nice day. And so Josh said, well, should I just go by myself?
I remember you gave the money and you're like, go.
Yeah. And he says,
Just
yeah.
go.
And I'm like, and I handed the money. I'm like, go. And he runs off because,
We're
like I
in the middle
said,
of security.
we're really, it was tight getting on that flight
Yeah.
because of the line. So he takes off, and I walk out of this secured area, and my dad is talking to a pastor and one or two of our staff members who were there at the airport. And I walk up and say, hey, what's up? And he stops and looks at me. He's like, what are you doing here? So I explained the whole ordeal. And then that's how I got stuck in Honduras and missed going to Peru. I didn't know anything about the yellow fever thing. In fact, Josh, when you came back from Panama, and they asked you what you said
Several times I had
twice
to-
in Panama, and then when you got to Honduras, they wanted to see it again.
Yeah, they wanted to see it.
And the lady did not like the fact that it was old and tattered.
Mine is 10 years old. It's coming right up on year 10 now. And back in 2012, it went on a jungle expedition where everything got wet, and it was completely soaked. It was dried by a fire and tattered in pieces.
Yeah.
So
She
but it's
wasn't
there.
She wasn't happy that the condition that form was in, but she grudgingly let him into the country anyway. So that was yet one more miracle that happened. I figured that miracle is one of those things that I will probably never know the reason why.
But you were there for your family.
But I was
that
there for
time
my
and-
family, and something happened.
Yeah.
And it may be because of this. After I got back, I came back to Cantananas, and I helped my dad out with the groups for a little bit. And then I went down south because I thought, well, I don't have anything else to do. Let me go see how my family's doing. So I left our place early in the morning, around 4 a.m., because I wanted to get across the country before people had a chance to really wake up and start causing a ruckus. And so I got to where they were around 8:30 a.m. Well, the next day after church, I took them into the city because they kind of live out in a little town. And we went around, we ran some errands there. We went to a little mall and got some lunch. They had like an art exhibit at the front when you walked in. It was all very pretty. And then we drove back to where my in-laws live. Not 5 minutes after I got outside of town, we get a phone call and saying, "Hey, are you still in Chula TECA? Did you make it out?" And you're like, "Yeah, I made it out. What do you mean? What did I make it out?" "Yeah, we just left the city maybe 5 minutes ago." And then they started sending us pictures. Not 5 minutes earlier, we had passed this point. It was on fire. There was vehicles that were on fire, tires in the road that were burning, people out there throwing rocks, tear gas, you name it. Not 5 minutes earlier, we passed that point. So that could be the reason that happened.
In the restaurant that you guys were eating.
The next morning, the sky fell in Chula TECA. We started watching the news. That was going to be the day that my wife and daughter were going to take the bus into town, okay? There was fires everywhere. People were getting shot. They showed the place, the mall, where the art exhibit was. It was on the news. There was blood all over the floor. Somebody got their leg blown off. That's a place we had eaten at not 24 hours earlier. So maybe that's another reason why I wasn't allowed to go to Peru. Like I said, that's one of the things I'll never know for sure. And I'm glad that I'll never know for sure because I don't think I want to know. But yeah, I mean, it was really a long trip. It was an exhausting trip, but it was a trip that was also full of miracles. And you know, I've seen so many miracles in my life because I've been involved with Final Frontiers since the time I was just a child, and to the point where I almost take it for granted. And I've got my daughters. They're growing up, ages 10 and almost 13 now. And, a few months ago, I was praying to God. I said, "Father, you've shown me so many miracles throughout my life. You've proven your existence to me, even though you didn't have to do that for me. You don't owe me anything. You're God. You're the creator of the universe. But you did it for me anyway. If you don't mind, could you do some miracles? Could you show my daughter some of the things that you've shown me through my life? If you don't mind, would you do that for them?" And hey, look what happened. A few months later, we're in Honduras and all this stuff happened. So, yeah, God is good.
Yeah, there's a previous episode on the podcast where we just talked about miracles and things that have happened in our lives. But when you are serving God, especially in missions, I see things like this happen so much. You're just minding your own business, serving Him. You're doing the best that you can, and you're just waiting for the leading of the Holy Spirit in each decision that you make, and He just guides you. So we're giving you like a little taste of some of the things that happened there just in one trip.
Yeah.
And all of this happened in a matter of 3 weeks. Yeah. A whole lot more took place. Believe me, it was packed. But all these little things here happened actually 4 weeks because the last part there happened the last week. So next time that we talk on here, we're going to try to talk more about the Yene project and the culmination of that and what happened when I went to Peru. We'll probably have some other things.
The video should be out by then.
Yeah, by then the video should be out. Really, when you hear this, probably a few days after you hear this, I'll be getting done with the video project. I've been working on it the last 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So that project is almost done. I hope it's exciting and inspiring, and then we'll talk about that on the next podcast. But I hope this wets your whistle to seek God and just make sure that you're in His will and you're following Him, and you'll see miracles as well in His service.
Amen. Well, if you want to learn more, always visit our website at www.finalfrontiers.world.
Would you like for world missions to be fresh and exciting in your home? Here at Final Frontiers, we work hard to produce a full-color magazine report with inspiring stories, important global facts, and missions opportunities and updates every quarter throughout the year. You can sign up for your copy at finalfrontiers.world.
Your inquiries and comments are important to us. If you have questions or perhaps subject matter you would like to have addressed on this show, please visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
Missions travel has changed. Today you can fly from England to India in less than half a day, but 200 years ago it took months, sailing through some of the most treacherous and pirate-infested waters in the world. And if the waves didn't get you, the heat, rotting food, and onboard diseases would. In fact, travel was so perilous that many died on their journey and not the field. David Livingston's wife and child, for example, died along the Zambezi River before ever arriving at their destination. Scottish missionary John Peyton, whose family traveled to the New Hebrides Islands in the South Pacific, lost his wife and newborn son only 3 months after arriving. Because of the island culture, he had to sleep on the graves of his wife and children until they had decomposed to prevent the cannibals from digging up their bodies to eat them. When he died, the islanders, having been converted, said, "When John Peyton arrived, there were no Christians. When he died, there were no cannibals." The purpose of traveling is to get to the place where men are in need of hearing the gospel, whether it means crossing the Amazon, infested with crocodiles and piranha, enduring altitude sickness in the Andes, wading through swamps in the Bangladesh Delta, or being so deep in a dense African jungle that you cannot see the sun to judge your direction. It is not the dangers of the journey that matter. It is the prize at the end of the trail. In his travels, Paul shared that he had been beaten with a rod, received some 200 lashes, left for dead, stoned, imprisoned multiple times, shipwrecked 3 times, suffered hunger, nakedness, cold, and sickness, and we know that at least once he was bitten by a poisonous snake. What a journey! Missionary travel has changed, but our message has not, and it yet remains for the entire world to hear at least once what we have heard all our lives. I'm John Nelms. To learn more about missions, order a copy of my book, The Great Omission, on our website at finalfrontiers.world.
You've been listening to the Final Frontiers radio show, funded by sponsors like you. Thank you so much for joining us. Through the funding of national and native preachers, we endeavor to effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. If you want more information, visit www.finalfrontiers.world. That's finalfrontiers.world.